For my project, I chose to recreate the photo called Cartier Meets the Indians of St. Louis, 1535. That's what Jeffrey W. Charles had named and drew in 1942. What did European settlement mean for all involved? When the Europeans found the Americas and started to settle there, they made consequences for many. The First Nations were heavily impacted with diseases because they didn't have the immune system for them like the Europeans had. When they arrived, the First Nations lost some of their land and resources. But for the Europeans, it meant new land, resources, and a new life for some. When they started to settle there and more Europeans started to come over to live in Canada and build settlements, they could become rich by working there, which was a big reason people left their life behind in Europe and came to the Americas. If they had no family and they were very poor over in Europe, then they could come over here and start a new life. What were the changes in worldview? Many cultures changed. As an example, the First Nations, Africans, and Europeans came here as slaves. They became slaves and built many settlements. They helped create this country and made a huge impact. But the First Nations lost a lot of their culture and their language when they were put into the residential schools. There was cheap labor and all sorts of things that wasn't fair. In my drawing, I kept a lot of it similar to the original drawing. I drew the drawing on the right and the original made by Charles W. Jeffries on the left. I didn't really change the expressions on their faces because I reinterpreted it as the First Nations watching Jacques Cartier talk to the First Nations from afar. You can mostly see their backs, but you can tell by their body language that they are concerned, worried, and curious. I made it more of the First Nations perspective, but if you shift your way in seeing it, you can also see the Europeans' point of view. How does colonization today help answer what did European settlement mean for all involved? It shows you the ongoing consequences and outcome of colonism, the impacts on culture, community, and businesses, and how still to this day has an effect. We need to recognize and understand this, so in the future, the not-so-great parts of all of this won't happen again. Overall, I enjoyed this project and loved to draw, trace, and create my own version or how I would see the First Nations' point of view. I learned a lot about how the Europeans came here and how Canada became a country, how to make inferences and now understand colonism better, and how Canada became Canada to this day.